A very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTB AM. As ever, if you want to leave us a comment, you can just drop one underneath whatever stream you're watching this live, or of course you can tweet us directly at Off The Ball AM is the Twitter handle for the show. We also read the at Off The Ball Twitter tweets as well. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Are you excited about the return of the Nations Cup this weekend?
Of course I am. Like, people get a little bit too ahead of themselves when they say that the international break is kind of where football pauses or basically dies for a fortnight.
Yeah.
I think it really comes to life, particularly in the current scenario where, like, even when we're not in full soap opera mode, we still have elements of soap opera. The current one being Martin O'Neill versus Alan Shearer. So this is the sort of stuff we live for. This is the sort of stuff we don't get in the Premier League. And sometimes being shite is a good thing. And it's an enjoyable experience.
I don't know if being shy is a good thing. I think that yesterday afternoon before the press conference, the soap opera was how would Keane and Arthur, would they look at each other, would they speak to each other? So there's only these photographs like from angles where Keane is in the background brooding and Harry Arthur is like ignoring the fact that Keane is behind him, and then Keane is looking directly at him, and one of the photographs is kind of taken, it looks like it's taken from a drone. Obviously it isn't, because the footballers would break the drone by kicking a football at it. They wouldn't be able to resist themselves. And there doesn't seem to be any moment in the entire training session, which was open to the photographers, where they actually looked each other in the eye and went, or had kind of a fake laugh. There was no rapprochement publicly.
But that would be fake. I'm sure they've had that.
Well, who cares? It's training. It's all fake.
All of training. Well, I suppose once the media gets in, it's all fake, isn't it? Except if you're, of course, an England assistant holding the actual real team in your hand. But other than that, it is, I guess, all sort of fake. And maybe they could have played up to the cameras a little bit more, but it doesn't strike me that Harry Arthur's the type of guy to do that. Roy Keane is definitely not the type of guy to do that. And maybe there's an element of him that's like, I like this image that's being portrayed of me, that everybody lives in a small state of fear around me in the Ireland camp, and I'm going to keep that image going. There's no way I'm even going to break a smile at Harry in this training session.
Why do you think Martin O'Neill went for Alan Shearer?
Because Martin O'Neill is very protective of Cyrus Christie. Martin O'Neill obviously views Cyrus Christie in a very good light. And there is sort of a lingering doubt that until we actually see the starting 11 named for this Saturday,
and even then,
that Cyrus Christie could start ahead of Matt Doherty.
Might be somebody subbed in after the parade.
There very well could be. So it might be that, but I think it's also, in fairness to Martin O'Neill, he is a fella. He kind of creates a siege mentality to a certain extent, where you're not going to say anything about my players. If I feel that you're being a little bit out of line against one of my players and if you're treating them a little bit unfairly, I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks.
So just to briefly recap, at the weekend, Arsenal played one of their best games in a long period of time, scoring one of the most beautiful goals that we've seen in a long period of time. They win 5-1. One of the people who is culpable for multiple Arsenal goals is none other than Cyrus Christie. And afterwards, during the game, apparently he's getting ripped by...
I wouldn't say ripped, but Sky Sport, he gets mentioned quite a lot in the Sky Sports commentary.
In a negative way?
Yeah, as in Alex Iwobi is having a field day out there.
His direct opponent? I mean...
Yeah, Iwobi was playing on the
yeah.
left, but I thought Iwobi was outstanding on Sunday rather than Christie being bad.
And then that night on Match of the Day, or is it Match of the Day 2? I can't even remember.
Match of the Day 2.
Alan Shearer rips, and Cyrus Christie's lying there in a tattered piece of paper on the ground.
Yeah,
he
put him through the shredder. Kind of like that Banksy self-destruct painting. That was Cyrus Christie at the end of Match of the Day 2 on Sunday night. But Martin O'Neill says that it wasn't Cyrus Christie's fault entirely. He wasn't solely to blame for this. That it was actually the right-sided centre half that should have taken most of the blame.
Did he not also blame somebody else? Was Cyrus Christie not merely carrying out instructions?
The manager, of course, Jokanovic, who...
who's definitely going to pick Cyrus Christie after international manager goes, hang on a second, what? Me? No!
So yeah, there was that. Like, Martin O'Neill says that Alan Shearer should have prefaced it by saying that I don't know what the manager has told him, but maybe he's told him something. Shearer does mention, if I recall, something about the manager. He doesn't put it in as blunt a terms as Martin O'Neill would have liked.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. Cyrus Christie's obviously to blame. He's a right back in a team that lost 5-1. Every defender take some share of the blame when you've conceded 5 goals, and the manager has to take some share of the blame when you've conceded 5 goals. So I think it's a little bit more nuanced than Martin O'Neill or Alan Shearer likes to make out.
So Cyrus Christie is effectively the new Glenn Whelan, in that everybody wanted Glenn Whelan out of the team to be replaced by most likely Wes, right? And Martin O'Neill's like, you know nothing about football, you fools. And now it's everybody wants Cyrus Christie out of the team to be replaced by Matt Doherty. And he's like, you know nothing, you fools. Matt Doherty can't even defend. And then Matt Doherty gets good at defending. He's like, Matt Doherty can't even attack. Whereas Cyrus Christie can do everything. We know this from having seen him be such a superstar for Ireland.
If this becomes the new Glenn Whelan versus Wes Hoolahan, it'll be the most tragic chapter in the history of Irish football. If an actual professional football manager can make any argument that Cyrus Christie deserves to start ahead of Matt Doherty, they are totally deluded. They're living on a different planet. Like, because it's no reflection of Cyrus Christie, it's a reflection of any Irish footballer right now. Matt Doherty, no matter what position he plays in, deserves to start ahead of literally every other Irish footballer that is playing professional football right now. He's the best player in the Premier League. He's just been voted the August player or the September player of the month. Like, this is not comparable to Whelan versus Hoolahan.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Don't get me even talk to me about that possibility.
Here's what's coming up on the show. We've got a very busy show for you. So the Sean Cox update, obviously over the course of the last week, it has emerged that the family of Sean Cox are probably going to need about €2 million to make sure that his medical care is looked after into the future. That involves kind of recasting the house and just making sure that there's permanent care to just make sure that everything is actually okay. So we're going to talk to the chairman of the local Dunboyne GAA club a little bit later on. Stephanie Roche is going to join us in studio to talk to us about how the women's national team are getting on at the moment. The Rugby Glory Days, Malcolm O'Kelly is going to join us in studio to look back at that time when rugby was ultimately a very minority sport with the start of the first Heineken Cup. Way back when, Malcolm's going to try and dig into the recesses of his mind to find out exactly what it was like back when rugby was really just turning professional, and this did seem like a frontiersman's episode. And then we're also going to talk about some issues in the GAA in London, where there's a clash between is it the senior camogie and the intermediate football, which is resulting in some players who want to play both not actually being able to play, which kind of seems a little bit like madness, considering London were out of most of the championships a little bit earlier on in the summer than most other counties as well. Talking to Helen Murphy about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, that tends to happen, isn't it? Counties just sitting on their hands, just waiting for everything else to happen.
It's a big out area, I suppose, London, but like we'll try and get to the bottom of it a little bit later on. Time now for the papers, though.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
So there's an interesting headline on the back of the Irish Independent. James McLean, I'd welcome Rice back into the Irish squad. This is over David Kelly's piece. Derryman says he didn't agree with Harry Arter's withdrawal, but is happy to have him back. Wrapped in the tricolour, in case you didn't know, he's like the most Irish of Irishmen.
No, he's not. Conor McGregor is.
There's a bit of similarity there in just the bone structure.
Is there?
The wrapping in the tricolour.
Well, Conor McGregor at 155 maybe.
James McLean kind of just talks. It's like I couldn't tell from the exchanges whether or not he'd actually gone to meet Declan Rice. That's going to remain private, or had he had a conversation with Martin O'Neill about Declan Rice. Because obviously Kev tweeted back when Declan Rice said he was putting on pause his international career about, that's 3 caps you've taken from an Irishman, and McLean straight back, you're dead right, big man, kind of like sing your hook, Declan Rice. And I don't know if Martin O'Neill was too happy about that.
I'd be very surprised if Martin O'Neill was happy with that at all.
Shut up, James.
Yeah.
It would be kind of the interpretation of it. But it did seem as if he'd gone to meet him. Maybe I completely misinterpreted that. But McLean's also like, yeah, Harry Arter should have just showed up.
I wonder when James McLean went to meet Declan Rice, did James McLean show up wearing a tricolour draped around his back, and did Declan Rice show up with a Union Jack draped around his back? That would have been probably the moment when the meeting started and ended. Is he the type of guy you would send forward to try and claim a guy back for the Ireland team?
No. Again, I don't mind Harry as a person, but I'll tell Harry myself I thought he was wrong not to show up. I've no problem in saying that. We know you've no problem in saying that. You've literally no problem in saying anything you think. Except, like, sometimes you just need to, especially if you're going to be, like, the leader of the team, be a little bit political.
Like James McLean actually, like, holding his, like, getting in his lane and to a certain extent. I think it's fair enough him saying what he thinks, kind of spouting straight from the mind rather than thinking about it too much when he does these press events? No? I don't see anything particularly wrong with it.
Well, but like, is Harry Arter delighted to read this in the papers?
Probably not, but it's like, is Harry Arter actually reading the paper this morning?
Yes.
There's no player ratings in the paper this morning. I thought players only read player ratings.
One of his mates is helpfully screen grabbing it and WhatsApping it to him, going, "Did you see what he said about you? Did you see what your man said about you?"
That's just James, isn't it? Is that not the attitude they'd have? Like, I mean, he's one of the most open players in the Irish camp. He kind of, as you say, he says what he wants. And
and generally, I really think that he is to be commended for most of the stuff. But on this, it's just like, come on. It's like, delighted to have Harry Arter back. It's great. Don't know what happened there. Next question. United Ireland. There you go. Not actually looking at each other. Is Roy about to go in and have a tackle on the ball? No, that Roy is far away. Ireland squad put past aside as McLean holds out hope for Rice. Not so much hope as like, well, if he comes back, I don't mind. And then there's a Donald Lennon piece at the top. Munster away days have to be more productive in Europe. Tricky start for Munster this weekend.
Yeah, especially the fact that they're going to be down to third choice scrum half away to Exeter this weekend. Rory O'Connor was writing about the pre-season encounter between the two sides at Irish Independent Park, where Exeter came and sort of were like, this is on. We know we're playing you later on in a couple of months, but this may be just a pre-season game, but we're almost laying down a tiny little marker in pre-season. Like Exeter, we spoke about them last year as this sort of behemoth that were unstoppable, particularly at Sandy Park, and Leinster didn't have a chance. And then when Leinster went and won, it was kind of like a situation where maybe Exeter aren't that good. The truth of the matter was actually that Leinster were class, and we didn't realise it at that stage in the pool event of the Champions Cup last year. So I think it's kind of back to square one when it comes to the hoodoo at Sandy Park, and they've started the season well.
The injury to Albie Matthewson has given Neil Cronin an opportunity to be part of the Heineken Cup squad, and that's pretty amazing. So Neil Cronin, obviously Sean Cronin's younger brother, had it looked like he wasn't going to make it as a professional rugby player, but he went away, spent a lot of time in the club game, and now has a full-time professional contract. It's only a year's deal, but it's like, it's that sign that the late bloomers aren't being cut out of Irish rugby, and you really hope that he gets his opportunity and takes it, and that'll be an amazing story if he does. So the Irish Times, there's a couple of leads there. Don't fuck up. Coaches can have a big impact on young players. Mentality and performance is the headline on the Gordon Darcy piece today. But there's an interesting piece from Sean Moore, and Las Vegas scenes provide uncomfortable reminder for GAA. This is something that we couldn't help but notice ourselves when you see Khabib vaulting over into the crowd, and you see the Downpatrick players vaulting over into the crowd. It's like, it's kind of the same thing here. What's the difference? Like, morally, is there any difference? People were outraged at Khabib, but it's kind of like, sure, that's just the GAA lads blown off with a steam.
Morally, there's no difference. Absolutely no difference. In fact, the GAA one is worse, considering well, I wouldn't say it's worse. It's less understandable in the whole context of things. Like, we still don't know for sure what was said to Khabib in that octagon by Dylan Dennis on Saturday night. We do know something was said. We do know that there was something.
Do we? I don't. I think that he said stuff in the build-up. He had apparently there was some story about a Photoshop, and so that was like that Khabib had decided pre-fight he was going to get Dennis afterwards, irrespective. Like, I don't believe that he can actually hear.
Well, maybe not.
Or isolate his voice. I mean, I'm sure you can hear stuff in any sports environment. You tune your ears to hear certain things, but like it would be remarkable if he had heard this guy who he already had a beef with and could identify him as the voice in the crowd.
Either way, and I'm not condoning what Khabib did, it was sort of a revenge mission. Like, were the players in that Downpatrick game on Sunday, were they being baited with slights on their family and their religion that caused them to jump into the crowd? Maybe they were.
Unlikely about religion.
But it is kind of unlikely overall, and that sort of makes it a tad worse, to be honest with you.
Okay, so the Times Ireland edition. O'Neill mocks Shearer over 8 games. In fairness, you've got to hand it to Martin O'Neill. He knows how to twist a knife. I had forgotten that Alan Shearer's final game as manager of Newcastle was a 1-0 defeat to Martin O'Neill's Aston Villa.
Oh, was it? Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's how he absolutely remembers. It's like, oh, see you on the couch, won't you? Let's go back there, yeah.
It's like Alan Shearer has poked Martin O'Neill, and Martin O'Neill has responded with an uppercut. That's the most unnecessary put down of Alan Shearer right there. It's like it's probably the darkest period of Alan Shearer's professional career, and Martin O'Neill just kind of pulled out that ace from the deck for what was essentially a package of clips about a person he honestly felt, it was nothing personal against Cyrus Christie, he honestly felt was one of the factors in Arsenal having success against the team that he was analysing. Like it's an overreaction from Martin O'Neill. Like if he's in your corner, like you love having him in your corner. Like, but then the question is Cyrus Christie this morning like, well, that's great, thanks for sticking up for me, Martin, or is it kind of like,
stop,
Dad?
Ma. That's the not my son clown on the internet.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know. You've got to wonder why he's doing it. Why is Martin O'Neill taking on Alan Shearer?
Because he loves Cyrus Christie.
What is the distractionary tactic? It's like there are fewer pieces about how Martin O'Neill is fighting for his job. There are still some in the papers than there would have been when all of a sudden everybody had to go, ooh, what is we got our back page lead here, boys.
Yeah, so you're saying that the look over here, my job isn't in danger sort of thing?
I think that that's today's narrative.
Is he...
Shearer will hopefully tweet back later on today, and this thing rolls and rolls, and the whole week is like Shearer versus... And then the game happens, and we're like, oh, hang on a second. We weren't ready for this game at all.
Is this the week to save Martin O'Neill's Ireland job? Like, is it these two games?
No, like, are you going to sack... Who are we going to get for the qualifiers?
Well, the thing is, it's kind of... Now we're at the other end of the qualifiers, isn't it? Like, you've got two big gaps. One after the Nations League, one after the qualifiers. And if we lose these two games, we're probably not going to be in a playoff situation. So... it all stacks up to an idea that you kind of need to act now if you're going to do something. But maybe the FAI have no plans to actually get rid of him, so we're with him till the end of this whole campaign.
2018's most expensive yearling is the story from the Racing Post this morning. Lot 109 in the parade ring before selling to MV Magner for 3.4 million guineas. I don't know how much a guinea is. You know?
It's close enough to exact money in sterling anyway.
Yeah, it's mad that they don't translate it. Like, at least in the Irish papers, they translate the sterling as a matter of course. It's very annoying as the value fluctuates up and down. You're never quite able to pinpoint the transfer fees. But so, what do you know about this yearling?
Well, I know that it's a very promising horse and a very valuable horse. And it has 4 legs.
So it is a Galileo colt.
Oh, the Galileos are flying out of the stalls at the moment. It's like the bread during the storm. It just you can't get enough of the Galileos at the moment.
Independents face horror as betting taxes doubled. So this is from the budget yesterday. It was billed by government as a caring budget, but the betting industry in Ireland and beyond was left reeling when Minister for Finance Pascal Donoghue doubled the rate of betting tax to 2%. They also changed the rate of commission on the exchanges as well. So I think it's gone from 15% to 25%. Sharon Byrne, chairperson of the Irish Bookmakers Association, warned all independent shops would close. The rate was halved from 2% in 2007, and bookmaking analyst Goodbody Gaming and Leisure estimates that the increase could cost Paddy Power Betfair alone up to 23 million a year. So that's the story about that. No doubt we'll hear a bit more about it in the coming days and weeks.
On the back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning, it's layoff Martin. McLean hits back at critics of Boss O'Neill. I kind of had to read that a second time. I was like, layoff. Martin O'Neill is saying to lay off Cyrus Christie, and James McLean is saying to lay off Martin O'Neill. So everybody's telling everybody to lay the hell off for the time being. Launchbury then says Wasps are gunning for Leinster as FAIreland begins. The Irish Daily Mail's build up to Leinster against Wasps. Back page of the Herald then this morning is Arthur made a wrong call. McLean Knox teammates opt out, claiming only gun to my head would stop him playing for Ireland. There's a couple of interesting things in the Herald as well this morning. There is a special investigation going on at the moment about the state of Irish football. Richard Dunn writing today saying that when I broke into the first team at Everton, I was on £200 per week. But he makes this point that half the reason why it was seemingly easier for a lot of these players to make it in the Premiership at the time was kind of due to the fact that Irish players were really highly respected. It was the fact, not just that it was a less diluted league and it was a less global league, it was the fact that Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin had kind of tarred everybody with the one brush. They were responsible for everybody in the Premiership thinking that Irish people were brilliant at football. Is there truth in that?
I mean, I think the fact that they weren't scouting France was a big help. Like that, Arsene Wenger came over and bought like 5 players from France and was like, "Ooh, I can get these players really cheap, and they're at least as good, if not way better than the rest of the players that I'm getting." That's one thing. And then the second thing is that like it is a copycat league, so the fact that Seamus Coleman was really good from Sligo Rovers meant that people went shopping in Ireland for a period of time afterwards. So
probably not too stereotypical then. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is Trigger happy. Only a gun would keep McLean away. Terry's in line for the Villa job. Ger, are you happy with that?
No.
I can't wait to see your face when John Terry gets appointed as Aston Villa manager.
Well, he's definitely going to get appointed. So I'm well prepared for it. The Monaco job is open because the Monaco manager got sacked, and so Thierry Henry's going to get that job.
Yeah.
It's a slightly more glamorous job than the Birmingham-based Aston Villa. Monaco, will I live in the south of France in this beautiful principality and pay no tax, or will I live in the shithole that is Birmingham? I'm going to pick Monaco 5 times out of 5. Let's hear from Sean Maguire, who was part of the Ireland setup, obviously. Here he is talking yesterday at the press conference. Have a listen.
No, it hasn't been that, I suppose, goal scorer since Robbie's left. And I don't think we'll ever replace him in a way because, the amount of goals he scored for this country. Yeah, I feel like there is an opportunity for one of, I suppose, the four new lads coming in that have only probably have a couple of caps to, stay claim in the starting 11 and, claim the jersey for, each international trip. And I feel like, hopefully, if I do get that opportunity, I can, step up the plate and play a crucial part if that's, coming off the bench. Or obviously starting the game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, do you think you could start this weekend, or how do you assess your chances? How do you see yourself in the...
just suppose you have to just monitor it this week, each day by day, because I've only been back training 4 weeks and I've only played 45 minutes in a bounce game and then 20 minutes at the weekend. So it's hard to say, and you just have to take it day by day and keep talking to obviously the people back at the club and obviously the people here with. At the FAI. Yeah, well, it's my own body at the end of the day. I got to just keep talking with, the sports scientists here, physios here, and just, as I said, monitor day by day and keep in touch with Preston as well, because obviously you don't want to break down again. So as I said, just got to monitor day by day and take it from there. If I'm named in the starting 11, I'll be, more than happy to step up to the plate, and if the gaffer puts me in there, I feel like I can. As I said, just step up.
It's a real pity when Sean Maguire is kind of thereabouts and everybody else is injured that he's not in the full flushes of health and also in full flushes of form at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It would have been such a huge opportunity for him. It's an interesting period in his career at the moment, because we obviously had, as you weren't talking about this exact period, but you mentioned Seamus Coleman and sort of the en vogue nature of going over to Ireland to poach a few players. There was an element of that in what we saw last year and the year before, and that you initially had that big bounce at the start, and after that it becomes about proving yourself on your own 2 feet, where you're up against everybody else. You're not the new boy anymore, and it's such a period, or such a pivotal time, I should say, in Sean Maguire's career. But the fitness would help. I wonder, does Sean Maguire become one of these players that kind of excels for country before club? It seems that there's every opportunity he could do that, given the striker depletion we have for the Republic of Ireland.
And it feels a little bit like that's where we are as a nation at the moment, that we will be trying to help players get league games in some ways, just that we just don't have enough players.
Yeah, it means that those kind of reconnaissance missions that Roy Keane and Martin O'Neill go on are so vitally important for all those players. It's not just that, I get spotted to play for my international team. It's like, I get spotted, I play for my international team, and that may catapult my club career.
And so many times we hear that they show up and there's no game time for the players that they're actually trying to get.
Yeah. Back page of the Mirror is it's time to move on. McLean says Arthur and Rice were wrong, but it's in the past now, so let's get on with it. And you've got some quotes from Aidan O'Shea as well. He was speaking on Off the Ball last night, as well as speaking to the press. He says Horan is here to win, not make friends. There's fear over who may be cut. He was. We'll hear a bit from Aidan O'Shea in a moment, but he was saying last night, this is the focus for next year, blah, 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 if I'm in the squad. Which is a good caveat. Imagine if James Horan dropped Aidan O'Shea as his first port of call. It's like that the possibility kind of seems highly unlikely to me.
I roll my eyes. Just for anybody who's listening, I roll my eyes.
Back page of The Sun is Cam Arthur the Storm.
It's not that bad.
It's good, yeah.
It's not that bad.
But then the other one is Sheer and Row. which we think means here and now. Marathon Blast at Allen. So
Here and row.
I had to Google, was here and now kind of a cool, en vogue term at the moment, and it's a new HBO series starring Sarah Jessica Parker. It's got 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's what the Sun are going for. Maybe big fans of Here and Now from HBO Studios in the Sun offices. Back page of The Guardian this morning is Sound of Silence. Southgate prepares players for no spectators in Croatia. I kind of forgot about the fact that Croatia had a massive swastika in their pitch when they were playing Italy in 2016. Kind of weird how I kind of compartmentalised those sort of fascist moments in football.
Who had done it? The fans or the FA?
I think so. Like the country's football federation apologised after it. I just can't recall what actually happened. I do remember it was just like, oh yeah, there's a swastika on a football pitch involving two very high-profile nations. The world isn't a great place sometimes. Matilda's roar back against Lionesses is the other story there.
Just read the headline in the Telegraph for us there on that one, just to read it in bits.
Struth, a late sickener, reads the headline, and then it's Lionesses mauled the Matildas, but Rue missed chances as they let victory slip away.
So, Lionesses mauled the Matildas.
Yeah, but they let victory slip away.
But they mauled them.
But no, they let victory slip away.
But like, this is the kind of shitty reporting that leads to Brexit. Oh, we're amazing. We absolutely hammered that Australian team. 1-1 draw.
There's another good horse story there as well. Keeping it in the family, Frankel the Wonder Horse turned super sire. So all those horse breeding stories I'll be reporting on forever.
You should go and see the process of the breeding.
Yeah, maybe not.
It's amazing. It's somebody's job to help it along, literally, to like make sure that everything is going in the right place, because the seed is so valuable that like it can't be spilled.
I see how much Galileos go for. I see how valuable that seed is.
No foal, no fee. Like if there's no foal, you don't get paid. That's where that actually comes from.
Is that like a clause with chill insurance or something like that?
There is a person whose job it is to help the thing along.
Right. Okay. Like a vet.
Not a vet. I think you don't need to go to college for that bit. Anyway, let's move on. Aidan O'Shea was in studio last night talking to Joe. Here's a little snippet of how the conversation went.
Once I seen his name going in, I was happy to see his name go in for the job.
So what does he bring to it? He came in, I think, in your second year in 10.
Third year, I had John over the first 2 years, and then after we lost Longford, he came in.
Yeah.
He's cutthroat. Like we got a right shock. Like when he came in the first time, we were all kind of coasting along, and then all of a sudden, everybody kind of opened their eyes. Well, whoa, this is the expectation, and it took a little bit of getting used to. He's
with
very,
regards to
just very demanding,
time.
Just like time demanding, and he expects excellence, like in everything we do. The standards never to slip, and if there are, they're called out. And he's he comes from, I suppose, a multinational background. That's kind of process-driven, orientated kind of environment, and
he's never struck me as a man with a temper in the years we've been talking to him, but obviously it's a different environment to...
He's firm, he's firm. He is, it's not that he gets mad, but when he's, there's been times where he'll call a session and just stop it and be like, go ballistic, but, he's very good, very professional, and he'll the environment around the place is going to be top notch because that's what he seeks and provides for the group.
Yeah, because he really turned, if nothing else, and there was more, but he really turned Mayo into an unbelievably physical team, like one of the few teams who could match the Dubs physically, and it seemed he really kick-started that process in a big way, not to be unfair to anyone who came before him, but it seemed to go up a notch with them.
Yeah, I think in fairness, he probably recognised the raw material that was there, and he built what he wanted around the player group that he seen, and he was smart with that, but yeah, we were miles behind in terms of the physical work at the time, and most teams are catching up in terms of that now, but we were way off it.
It's interesting stuff from Aidan O'Shea about James Horan. We'll talk more obviously about what's going to happen with Mayo next season over the dark long winter months ahead of the return of the National Football League. In the meantime, Darren is here with a roundup of everything that's going on in the world today. How are you?
Morning, Ger. Very well. As you've been touching on, James McLean has insisted that someone would have to put a gun to his head to stop him from turning up for Republic of Ireland duty. Harry Arthur rejoined his teammates yesterday for the first time since making himself unavailable for last month's games against Wales and Poland. Arthur chose not to report for international duty after a row with the assistant manager Roy Keane during the summer. McLean welcomed the midfielder back into the fold, but admitted he felt Arthur was in the wrong, and McLean appears to have told him as much.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see him back. Obviously, he's a good lad. He's a good player at the minute. We kind of need all the good players we can get. don't think it's a biggest deal as it's been made out. So what? Someone had a go at someone. Like we're all grown men at the end of the day. You know, deal with, get on with. But the harmony in the squad. I think if you ask the two lads as well, it's been good. It's always been good. Yeah, I think it's obviously not ideal. Harry didn't show up the last campaign. I tell Harry myself that I don't agree with that. You know, you'd have to put a gun to my head for me not to show up and play for Ireland. But again, everybody's different. But he's here now, and like I touched on earlier, he's here now. He's a teammate. He's here to play for Ireland, and you know he's got my back 100% on that.
It does happen, I suppose. Like, have you had rows with Roy or Martin over the years?
No, because I like to think I'm a bit wiser. They just to keep my mouth shut because they picked the team. Look, it's Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. Look at their CVs. So if they say something, like I respect both of them a lot, so I'll take it on board, whether I agree or not with it. No, I think I respect them both too much. They can't tell them they're wrong, even if I think that's the case or not. I'll take it on board.
I'd say James McLean tells them they're wrong all the time.
I think having worked with O'Neill at Sunderland, he probably learned really early on that if you tell O'Neill he's wrong,
you don't play.
Yeah, you don't play.
With Ireland though, he's got nobody else.
He loves what McLean does.
He does.
They're running around headlessly, flying into stuff. He just loves that.
Yeah.
Energy and enthusiasmos, as Trapp used to call it for the game. Under 19s in action as well. They get the European Championship qualification campaign underway this evening. They face Bosnia-Herzegovina from 3 in Longford. While Stephen Ireland has been given the chance to reboot his career at Championship side Bolton, the ex-Republic of Ireland man was released by Stoke in June after relegation from the Premier League. He made 5 appearances last season. The season before that blighted by a double leg break. He will be playing outside the Premier League for the first time in his career. He started with Man City, played 138 games for them before joining Villa for €10 million back in 2010. Drogheda United will have to plan without their captain Jake Hyland for the SSE Airtricity League First Division promotion playoff. Hyland suffered a broken leg in Monday's penalty shootout victory over Shelbourne at Tolka Park. The 23-year-old was stretchered off with a broken leg after a dirty two-footed tackle by James English. His own manager, Owen Heary, has been talking to Jamie Moore. He described the challenge as cowardly.
For me, it was a stupid booking on the force, and Cardinal saying for the defenders, you don't let the ball bounce. He done that. He gives away a free kick. He gets booked for it, and then he gave away 3 or 4 straight after that. Referee warned him. You know, when he goes and does another one, then he gets sent off for it. I've no qualms with it. James English, it's a cowardly tackle. You go in, you know, over the top, and you get a straight red for it. You know, especially when we're down to 10 men, you don't need to lunge in like that. You need to keep your shape, keep your discipline. So the 2 boys let us down tonight, but I thought the 9 lads that continued on were brilliant and nearly dug them out of a hole in the end.
Talking about his own player there.
Talking about his own player.
Okay, that's unusual.
Yeah, not really good. It's a good interview. For full context, League of Ireland podcast with Jamie Moore, offtheball.com.
Right. I mean, at the end of the season, right, so maybe not everybody's going to be back playing with each other, working under each other next season. English
is the most James McLean-like player I've ever seen that's not James McLean. He can be absolutely marvellous. He got the goal in Drogheda on Friday night. He can be brilliant for Shells and then do something just scatterbrained like that and dive in two-footed, break a lad's leg and not realise what he's done wrong. Just look in a perpetual state of confusion when he does something wrong. The Carnacon controversy might finally be over. It's rumbled on since July 9th, and the Mayo Ladies Board voted on Carnacon's request for a previous vote to appeal the leniency of the LGFA suspension to be withdrawn. Last night the clubs voted not to withdraw that appeal. If you're wondering what that actually means, it seems very unclear. They have basically voted to uphold the vote they took previously to appeal an appeal against the appeal. The issue centres on the charge that the club brought the game into disrepute after 8 players chose to withdraw from the Mayo Ladies senior panel. Carnacon will play Moy Davits on Sunday for a place in the county final. The suspended players are set to return with the bans ending Thursday at midnight. Mercifully, it looks like this chapter in GAA's history might finally be over. Now, the mess that is the GAA's master fixture list is not just confined to these shores, apparently. The story has emerged from Helen Murphy, who plays her camogie in London with Tara Camogie Club. They have reached the All-Britain Camogie final. It's fixed for Saturday at 1 o'clock. She also plays with Kingdom Kerry Ladies Gales, and they've made it to the intermediate final on the same day. Inexplicably fixed as the same day as the Camogie, but 200 miles apart, meaning that she will have to choose, because despite writing a letter to try and get this sorted, she has received no luck. She will be a guest on OTB AM momentarily, where we will bring you more on that story and that letter in full from her. Well, Khabib Nurmagomedov faces a fine and the stripping of his UFC championship, but perhaps worst of all, he faces the disapproval of his dad. Abdulmanan Nurmagomedov spoke with the Russian television station Ren TV. He hit out at his son for diving over the cage and into the crowd following his victory over Conor McGregor in Las Vegas at UFC 229. He's quoted as saying, "I think that for Khabib the most severe sanctions would be my regard. I am going to regard this severely," he says. "For me, the most important thing is discipline. You can do whatever you want in the octagon, but beyond its barrier, this is the border separating civilians. There are children, women and bystanders."
In that order. So he's definitely not going to be stripped. That was Dana White said that, and when Dana White was like busy kind of just shitting money basically on Monday, when the pay-per-view figures were coming in, they did more than 2 million, which is more than Tyson Holyfield.
That would be a new record as well for UFC.
He was asked, is he going to, no, not going to be. I mean, and then they were like, is he going to be suspended? Like, well, if Nevada suspends him, he'll be suspended from Nevada. And they were like, yeah, but hang on, what about, so McGregor got suspended, he's not going to get suspended, but it's like, there'll be something. It'll maybe he'll be gone for 5 or 6 months.
I wonder what you could buy with Dana White. I wonder where he will draw the line of things you can buy. Because for the first while he was like, it's disgraceful. Khabib's guys are going to get arrested. We might strip him of the belt. An hour later, he's like, we've done record buy rates, he keeps the belt.
Yeah.
What do you have to do? What is the line that needs to be crossed?
Murder.
I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
Fair point. Let's move on. Darren, great stuff. Thanks very much for that. As Darren mentioned there is controversy brewing in women's GAA in Britain at the moment, in London in particular. Helen Murphy joins us on the line now. Good morning to you, Helen. How are you?
Morning. I'm good, thanks.
Could you maybe just explain the genesis of this story? So you play both camogie and football, and obviously both of the teams you play on at the moment are quite successful.
Yeah, I play with Tara Camogie, and on Saturday the 13th, which has been pretty much a date set in stone since the fixtures were released, we're playing against Crichton Camogie in the All Britain Camogie final, and equally then I play with Kingdom Kerry Gales. Last year we won the junior provincial All Britain, and this year then we're into the intermediate, so we've come a long way. It's the first ever final provincial final that our football club has ever been in, and we're kind of the three of us are faced with the decision of where we're going to be on Saturday, whether we're going to be in London or whether we're going to be in York.
Okay, so one game's in London and one game's in York.
Yeah, they're about 200 miles apart. Yeah.
Right. And when did you reach the final in both of them? So you said one of the dates has been set in stone. The other date then obviously wasn't set in stone, was it?
The football date on the calendar has always been the 13th/14th of October. So kind of there was always going to be a clash, but it only came to kind of head really in the last 2 weeks when the last week in September. We travelled up to York, we played the semi-final and we beat a team from Liverpool, and straight away we kind of knew camogie we would probably be thereabouts in the final. So we raised with KKG, we raised the possibility, look, there's going to be a clash here, can we get a plan in place? But it kind of, no one seems to have really done a whole lot about it until this week, and now they're kind of realising, camogie haven't budged, football haven't budged. And unfortunately, there's a few of us caught in the middle of that.
Who would be responsible for the overarching view of this, Helen? Is there a body that can speak to the Camogie Association and the Football Association and has responsibility for both of them? Or is it just basically two separate organisations who can't really come up with a compromise at the moment?
There isn't, unlike kind of the men's game where Croke Park is going to be the overriding, head office, there is obviously provincial football do report to Croke Park, and the Camogie Board Britain have to go to Croke Park. So there isn't really anyone that's going to step in here or to, decide to say, look, this is the compromise. Somebody needs to, budge. And I think that's the thing at the minute, that there seems to be that unwillingness for either of them to be seen to be the one to give in. There doesn't even be, there's been no communication and kind of cooperation between the two, to resolve this. KKG, we've tried to offer alternative dates, the 14th, the 20th. We're looking at some other solutions at the minute as well, possibility of going early on the Saturday in London and later in the afternoon in York, and a rush to King's Cross Station and get a train to York to try and make both games. But that's the thing, because they're both the ladies' sport in Ireland, because they're two separate organisations. Technically, do they have to cooperate? You'd imagine they would, because there's dual players all around the country playing both football and camogie.
Well, isn't that the point, that actually this is an opportunity for them to learn how to collaborate and actually grow the sport properly? Because ultimately you guys are pioneers keeping a sport alive when it's not the easiest thing in the world. You don't have the club network that you do in Ireland. People don't just walk out of their school or have games development officers in the school breathing the gospel of the sport into new areas. You are definitely desperately trying to keep the sport alive, I presume.
Yeah, and it's been really successful. The ladies' football has really taken off over here. There's teams in every sort of big town and surprisingly small towns as well. And the camogie is cross country as well. We've teams Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester. So it is a very small network. So you'd imagine that there would be a desire for them to work together, because it is, at the end of the day, a much smaller pool of players that you're looking for. So why force players away from one sport and possibly two? Because, does anyone want to be caught in the middle of this situation to choose? I've mentioned it twice in that piece that I wrote. The idea of it still fills me with dread. I don't know what will happen if nothing changes on Saturday. We've discussed between ourselves, the three of us, whether two go one way and one goes the other way, or we just don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah. Where do you? You're London based, is that right?
Yeah.
And how big are the two clubs? It sounds like the football club is the newer of the two. Is that right?
Yeah. Tara's founded in the 80s, so we're being quite successful. We're going for our 10th championship in a row on Saturday. Kingdom Kerry Gales has sort of built itself up from junior club to senior. As I said, we've never competed at this level before, so it's a new beginning, new dawn for us as a club. But it seems really unfortunate that we could be in a position where our strongest team isn't out on Saturday competing. Yeah,
that's fair enough. Helen, thanks very much for bringing the story to us, and we'll let you get back to what sounds like a tricky enough class in the background there.
Oh yeah, they're getting a bit rowdy at the minute, yeah. All right, thanks very much, guys.
Thanks a million, cheers. That's Helen Murphy there, ahead of the weekend GAA clash. Look, this stuff isn't that hard to fix, is it?
No, it's easier to fix now as well, considering the All-Ireland finals were ages and ages and ages ago, and then you realise actually we're talking about London here, and they, as far as I recall, would have been out much sooner than everybody else. There was plenty of time to actually get all this stuff done. I'm not sure how many free weekends they would have had, in fairness, but I'm sure there was some sort of solution that was quite obvious but wasn't pursued.
I'm always in two minds about joining the organisations together and having one overarching body be responsible for it.
This is a great endorsement for joining them all up together. Well, then you say that, and then you look at some of the GAA kind of fixture clashes that occur here in Ireland in men's sport, and that's the one overarching body, really, isn't it? And it's two divergent sports. Would there be the same rivalry between football and camogie? Maybe there would be, because it seems that a lot of those sort of decisions that are made in some counties where one sport is more predominant over the other, it seems that it's almost like I don't know, there's a lack of respect for the minority sport in that county, and it's like, well, we don't care if your county final's on the same day as our county final. We just get on with it.
Colin Hennessy was in touch on YouTube to say, Helen, you've lost your fine Glenmore accent. Helen's brother, obviously, the greatest goalkeeper in the history of hurling, according to Shane Stapleton.
Yeah, that's it. So like the goat of hurling, I guess is what you could call it, in that position. We are going to see more of these stories, right? Are we still going to see them this winter, even though, as I say, the earlier All-Ireland finals were supposed to eradicate this to a certain extent?
Hannah Fortune, who plays football with Helen Murphy in London, also got in touch with us this morning. She says, I don't understand how or why the 13th came into it. We are junior British champions since last year, won in Europe, went on to host the Ulster champs in Ruislip in a closely contested game. Our players give as much commitment to the GAA as Irish teams, so should be given the same respect. We should be trying to grow the game in the UK, not putting two sports against each other. The girls shouldn't have to choose. It just seems such an obvious decision. I mean, do you remember one of the things about the Sky deal was growing the game in the UK? Remember that? Remember one of the things about the Sky deal? Remember? It was like... And obviously...
The Sky, come on now. Television deal is not going to fix this.
I'm not saying it was, but I'm saying that was one of the things, was one of the central tenets of that deal was that it was going to help grow the sport in the UK. And here you have the sport in the UK not being allowed to grow because the best players aren't being allowed to play in the biggest games because the games aren't at the same time. Now, obviously they can go, well, it's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with us. We don't control these games, but, you know.
Like, fair enough that it's not going to help the growth of the UK, of the sport in the UK and all that sort of stuff, but we're going to see this stuff in Ireland, I dare say, over the next couple of months.
No doubt.
This is not unique to the United Kingdom. Definitely not unique to London.
No doubt. All right, if you want to get in touch with us this morning, you can tweet the show at @OffTheBallAM, or you can always drop us an email. Do people still use emails? I mean, certainly my experience of working in this office is nobody reads them, so there's no point in sending them to us.
I don't use emails, do you?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, I just hear this weird sound coming from my computer every so often.
Ding. What is that noise? There's like a...
And there's this really archaic program that I never click into. Outlook?
Yeah.
It's called.
Yeah. Sometimes we put important stuff on there.
It's got a send...
Think of it as a message board.
They still have a send receive button in Outlook.
They do, but that's just like, I mean...
nostalgia.
Yeah.
I can almost hear the dial tone, the dial-up tone for the...
Did you ever have dial-up?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
You remember what it was like?
Why, are you saying that carry is so backward that we never had dial-up?
I thought that maybe you just got like 4G, you know?
It's all futuristic there. That would imagine having 4G when everybody else was on dial-up. I would have been, I don't know what that would have created. Probably just a sense of smugness, maybe.
Back to the Future style biff with the results.
Yeah, but it's kind of a really shy version of Back to the Future, isn't it? Where the protagonist just has faster internet speeds. And like, I'd much rather a sports almanac and the DeLorean that could actually...
Well, you would have the sports almanac. You'd be watching the game. You'd be 5 minutes ahead of everybody else. Like, oh, I think next goal scored. Thanks very much. And that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, but like the people who were at those games for like the betting organisations still had mobile phones that they could actually phone back to base and actually have those scores updated. So your story's got a lot of flaws here. We are going to speak with Malcolm O'Kelly a little bit later on the show about the origins of the European Cup. He was one of the few people who we could manage, who's still alive. Joking. He was one of the few people who actually, he was literally the only person who started in any of those games for Munster and Leinster that actually went on to win a European Cup medal. He was still around in 2009. So Malcolm's going to join us sometime around about 9 o'clock this morning for a stroll down memory lane about the origins of the Heineken Cup, how did they kick off, big kick off this weekend. That game, the Leinster game at the RDS against Wasps, is live on News Talk and Off the Ball this Friday evening from 7 o'clock. Now, let's move on. Sean Cox sustained serious life-altering injuries earlier this year while attending a football game in Liverpool. Earlier this week, the Merseyside police reported that Italian officers have arrested a man in Rome using a European arrest warrant in relation to the incident. The suspect appeared in court on the 6th of October and has been remanded in custody ahead of an extradition hearing. 2 other men have already been charged in relation to the incident. Filippo Lombardi, 21, was charged with violent disorder and wounding, inflicting grievous bodily harm, and will appear at Preston Crown Court on Wednesday. That's today, ahead of his trial on Thursday. In August this year, Daniele Sicchiuso, 29, was jailed for 2.5 years after admitting violent disorder outside Anfield on the same date. Over the past number of months, Sean has been taking small but important steps on a road to recovery. His journey will be long and difficult, and the focus will continue on ensuring the best
care to maximise the potential in Sean's recovery. He has recently commenced a programme of rehabilitation in Dunleary, and following this will continue to require ongoing and intensive long-term care and support. The reality is that the provision of this long-term care and support for Sean will necessitate significant funding over many years. The figure of 2 million has been mentioned in the newspapers at the weekend, and you can see there a GoFundMe has been set up. It's gofundme.com/support Sean Cox. Fergus McNulty is the chairman of St Peter's Dunboyne GAA Club, and he joined Owen in studio yesterday to talk about the launch of the Sean Cox fundraising efforts and to talk about where he is now.
Okay, so as you can see, we've put up a link to the GoFundMe for Sean Cox. It's gofundme.com/support Sean Cox. It's already got a huge amount of support financially, as you can imagine, and I'm delighted to say that the chairman of St Peter's GAA Dunboyne, Fergus McNulty, is with me in studio. Fergus, you're very welcome.
Hey, Owen.
It's very striking, isn't it? I think at the time of recording here, about 21,000 on this latest GoFundMe page for Sean Cox. The support here has been absolutely incredible.
Absolutely, and has been since April. So I think the amount of support, solidarity, messages of support, really since April has been just enormous from all corners. So I think we're 4 or 5 days up and running in terms of the campaign. So we're already seeing that just people are genuinely kind of engaged and touched by Sean's stories. So obviously it's great to see.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. We can see as such a global impact on it as well when you go into the donations on a bit-by-bit basis in the GoFundMe page. But ultimately you're here on behalf of St Peter's GAA because Sean Cox is such a big part of St Peter's GAA. In fact, he was your predecessor as chairman at the club.
He was, yeah. So Sean has been, he's been at the centre of the club now for, over 15 years or so, involved in all aspects of the club. So I took over from Sean, but I'd worked quite closely with Sean for many years before that. So he's been a driving force, not just in the GAA club. And I know, he probably is most associated with the GAA club, but he's very involved in the athletics club, and the athletics club have been quite helpful and are very much part of our campaign as well. But also, in terms of the general community, in terms of, just supporting how the community comes together and how the community develops. And Sean has been kind of a tireless kind of activist in that respect. So, I think that's why as a community we feel very, I suppose, connected to try and give something back to Sean and just obviously support his recovery.
Absolutely. Where were you when you heard what had happened to Sean earlier on this year?
I was actually at home. I was watching the game, and I took a call that obviously something was up. So really from there it unfolded very quickly and was obviously a bit of a blur. But I was actually ironically at home watching the match.
Yeah, Martina has done an interview with the Sunday Independent this week with John Green, and just talking, I guess, about that moment when she finds out about what had happened, but I guess not realising at the time just quite how serious that was. I presume that was kind of the same for everybody around Dunboyne who was hearing about this initially, that there had been an incident, there had been an attack on Sean, but nobody had quite realised just how grave it was at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, just you cast your mind back. An absolute shock, I think, would be the main recollection that I would have. Shock on a number of levels. Obviously, when you know somebody who gets caught up in something like that. But the fact that it was Sean is he's a very quiet individual. Somebody who absolutely would not be getting involved in any sort of trouble, etc. So I think all of those elements, like going to a sports game, you would expect that the last thing you would expect is to get caught up in something like that. So I think that shock was really the overwhelming kind of sentiment at the time. But then that quickly turned to how can we help, and how do we kind of get our arms around supporting Martina and the family. And that's really where I think the focus has been since.
You mentioned it happened very quickly, that the focus turning to how can we help out. I imagine it was pretty much instantaneous when you realised that help was going to be needed, that the whole community really rallied around this cause as soon as you heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I suppose, generally I think people probably felt a bit helpless as well, because you're not really sure what you can do. There's not very much you can say. So I think a lot of that solidarity and support was expressed probably through goodwill and kind of gestures of support. You saw that the various banners of support, etc. So I think as that's evolved over the last number of months and it's become clear in terms of where Sean is at with his recovery and what he's going to need into the future, it's turning that goodwill and solidarity now into, I suppose, a financial commitment, that we can do our bit to really kind of support the best type of recovery for Sean as possible.
Yeah, because the financial commitment at the moment, I guess he was moved to Dunleary to the rehabilitation centre there last week, and that's a 12-week programme. It's government funded, but then after that, financially, the Cox family will have to be self-sufficient in that regard.
Correct, yeah. So you're pretty much on your own after that process. So, Dunleary, which is the right place for Sean, and really, I suppose he can begin his rehab in earnest. But that's a relatively short process. So really, after that, I think it's finding what's the best opportunity for Sean after that. But essentially, it's a private process.
I presume a couple of people from Dunboyne have made the trip over to Liverpool when he was there, and perhaps, I'm not sure, he's only just in Dunleary, I suppose, only in the last week, as I say, so maybe not a whole pile have visited him. You visited him yourself, I presume. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so he moved to Beaumont in May. I think there's been a kind of a small group that have just, I suppose, visited Sean in that time. I suppose initially it's clearly a very difficult process for Martine and the family, and that's where your thoughts are at. But thankfully we have seen, and certainly from my experience, that Sean is taking small steps. He definitely is. He's moving in the right direction, albeit very slowly. And obviously that gives you a lot of hope and encouragement, and really, I suppose it's that it's going to be a multi-year process. So really from our perspective, I suppose it's rallying around and see how you can best support Sean in that process. Yeah,
it's such a dark area of medicine, isn't it, that there's so much yet to be discovered about the human brain, and ultimately everybody makes recoveries at different rates and things like that. There was glimmers of hope, I did feel, reading Martina's quotes in the newspaper at the weekend, that, as you say, at least the direction was going in the right way. Maybe as it's hard to know how quick that'll happen or what the end result of that direction is going to be, but at least, as you say, it is in the right direction, and I think that little bit of hope is all somebody like the family needs at this moment in time, just to see little increments of improvement, because at the very start you just don't know if improvements will come at all.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, but only last week we Jack, his son, was part of one of our junior footballers won the championship in Meath, and Jack was very much part of that team. He played a bit of a starring role in that game, but we brought the cup into Sean, and he definitely was, you could see that it definitely resonated with him. So it's those signs, I guess, that you say, that this is a process, but it is moving in the right direction. So, and I think it's certainly we look forward to hopefully at some point getting Sean a reasonable quality of life where hopefully we'll get him on a sideline at some point in the future.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I guess even as well, just speaking about Jack there, I think I saw Bill Shankly quoted as soon as the incident happened, which is the life, death in football and all that sort of thing, which is often kind of pulled up around these sort of moments. But at the same time, you talk about sport and you talk about very awful circumstances like this and the coping mechanism that sport can provide, and I'm sure that was the case for someone like Jack over the last couple of months, working and training and working towards this junior title with Dunboyne. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. I think the one thing that sport definitely does, and we've certainly seen it with different sporting communities coming together, that it definitely binds people together and there's kind of a common language around it, and there's a kind of a support framework around sport, which clearly this is bigger than sport, and this is the most important thing. But I think sport actually is an outlet, and it's a way of actually people kind of engaging around, in this case, Jack and supporting Jack. And I suppose it's part of your identity. And certainly we've seen, for example, we've a lot of contact with a lot of the supporters in Liverpool, a lot of absolutely fantastic people. And you can see that that kind of common identity just really, they want to reach out, they want to help, and it's part, I suppose, of what kind of binds people together.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's been so encouraging, I'm sure, to see the support that it's all got. So it's GoFundMe.com support Sean Cox, and any donation there I'm sure will be appreciated. Fergus, thank you so much for popping into the studio. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just saying there that this is just a terrible story, and when you hear there that it's going to be a multi-year thing in terms of rehab, these stories, they happen, and then the next phase happens and everybody moves on with their lives, but the Cox family, their lives were altered forever that night.
Yeah, I think it's all best in that Sunday Independent article with Martina Cox last weekend, where they just talk about this kind of strange moment where they hear that something's happened in Liverpool, and it becomes very clear very quickly that this is going to be something that has obviously changed Sean Cox's life, but it's going to change all of their lives. And you listen to that piece there, and it is just a huge show of support from everybody in Dunboyne, but also around the whole world at the moment. St. Peter's GA are going to do a lot of great work over the next couple of months. They're making a huge push in terms of the fundraising, but you look at the GoFundMe page and the donations coming from Liverpool fan groups around the world, from people around the world who've heard the story. It has to be heartening, but it's just the nature of the injuries. You just don't know how long it will take to make the next improvement, and how long it'll take after that to make the next little step forward, and nobody knows how big or small those steps are going to take, and what part of Sean Cox the family will get back.
Yeah, because the cost of maintaining proper care around the clock, they've raised 27 grand of a 2 million goal, so there's a significant distance to go. This was actually brought up at the weekend on the paper review. Tim McCarthy and Paul Rice were in talking about John Green's piece in the Sunday Independent, and they did get around to discussing the fundraising efforts around this. Just a few interesting ideas in this, so it's worth us playing this again. Have a look.
The harsh realities of the world step in, the emotion that was there at the time is now dwindling in that sense, and now you have a family whose loved one is in real trouble, and now financially there's huge pressure coming onto the line.
There's a thing there though on that, isn't there? Isn't that the banner, that Sean Cox banner carried by players onto the pitch? You'll never walk alone. Now, what does that really mean when it comes down to it? Surely there must be a way for people who are not just Liverpool fans, but genuinely want to help here to contribute to this. I mean, when you read this interview, and Martina, his wife, she just comes across as an exceptionally impressive woman who's there for her husband, really fighting for him. And it says Martina has become his voice in the thing, because she's trying to push things along for him, and that woman deserves every support, as the entire family do.
Yeah, so you get 12 weeks in Dunleary. That's what the state will provide when he comes back, and then you are on your own. They're hoping to raise, I think, a minimum of 2 million. There's talk of going to Germany. That seems to be the best place for rehabilitation. 2 million to a club like Liverpool? To Roma?
I would have a view that both clubs should give $1 million each, and it is. And then if there's other personal donations on top of that, but it's very easy with respect to players to walk around the field with a banner. You'll never walk alone.
Exactly.
That's
my point.
It's like players in a different context kissing the crest of a jersey, and then the next year they're playing for a different team and they kiss another crest. So sometimes shows of emotion like that, while they're important at that point in time for the Cox family, the test always comes in the end. I mean, I've always said in sport and in business, your courage is tested. Your courage is really tested, and Liverpool's courage now is tested in that this family need financial support, and I would expect Liverpool and Roma to be the people who give them that support, to send him to Germany and give him the best. His wife's line: give him the optimum opportunity for the remainder of his life in that sense.
Yeah, it's a very fair point that the lads are putting forward there in their conversation on the Sunday newspapers. These clubs are rich, they're pumping out money. They could easily afford $1 million each.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of seems like a no-brainer at the moment, and I'm sure there will be something after, I guess, the next couple of weeks. You've got kind of obviously a court case pending. You've obviously got Sean going through his period of stay in Dunleary at the moment, and potentially, as Joe says there, then the plan is maybe to go over to Germany for the very best treatment, because to give him the best level, to give him the best chance of those big leaps that I mentioned, it's going to have to be the best treatment now. As far as I understand, and as far as we were hearing there in the previous interview, the Dunleary setup is exceptional. It's just extremely costly after that, and you're on your own after the 12-week period.
All right, let's move on. Stephanie Roche is joining us next here on OTB AM. She was in studio around the launch of the Heinz Sports Club yesterday, which will support young people in their pursuit of sport by offering free clothing and equipment to sports clubs and schools right around the country. Aidan O'Shea, Keith Earls, Stephanie Roche and Rena Buckley were all there for the launch. Sports fans can collect Heinz Beans tokens on select packs for a choice of sports kit for their club or school. Visit heinz.ie/teams. That's heinz.ie/teams with a Z, TEAMZ, for more information. Here's how the conversation went.
Stephanie Roche is here. How are things?
I'm good, thank you.
So you're back, I want to say. You're back playing football. You've signed for a club in Italy.
I have, yeah. I'm thankfully getting back to playing. I've been out for a year now, just over a year, so I'm really looking forward to it. I've signed for a club in Serie A in Italy, so I'm not allowed to say what club yet because they want to announce it, and I have to wait for the whole international clearance and stuff to go through. But yeah, it's been good to get back and get back fit again, so I just can't wait to get started. Slightly
sunnier climes in Sunderland, regardless of what part of Italy you're in, I'd imagine.
yeah, definitely. I think a little bit of a culture change, all right.
That's the beauty of football, though, isn't it? The travel that you can get. Like, you've obviously experienced multiple different cultures already in your club career, and now Italy is another new departure.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously even just with the international team, I've travelled all over the world, which has been, it's nice to be able to say that. But going to Italy, I had to go a couple of times just to make sure that everything was set, because obviously I had a few bad experiences in France and kind of just wanted to go over and make sure the things that went wrong over there didn't happen over here as well. So I've took my time on this and really made the decision that was best for me at this point in my career, I think so.
What sort of bad experiences did you have in France?
Just it was I went to a club that just being promoted, and it was kind of just a little bit, they weren't used to dealing with international players, and kind of just left me to my own devices kind of thing, where I didn't speak the language, didn't really have any people around kind of helping me trying to get little things sorted. Just little things like in my house and apartment and stuff like that, which was a little bit scary at the time, to be honest, and obviously I ended up leaving to go to America then as well, so it was kind of just stuff that away from football more so than anything, that I needed to make sure that it was going to keep me happy and help me settle in a little bit quicker. So
well, it's great to hear that that's the case now, because I guess the main thing is just getting back on the football pitch as soon as possible now, because I'd imagine the last 12 months have been a very, very long 12 months for you.
Yeah, it's been torture, to be honest with you. Anyone who knows me knows that all I ever do is go out on the pitch and kick a ball around. Even when I'm not training, I'm doing it at home on the field, like on the way. So not being able to kick a ball for so long was very difficult. I had to work really hard to get my leg right again, and just make sure that I didn't kind of go back too quickly and hurt it again, because I did go back in January. You haven't been given the all clear, and it wasn't right. So kind of for me mentally, it was making sure that everything was all good and I could go back and kind of just play comfortably and know that it's good and sound, and I'm able to play on it,
What exactly was the injury?
I broke my leg. It was a hyperextension injury, so at first I thought it was really lucky that I didn't do my ACL, because of the way I landed it. Everybody, the physio and the doctor at the time, thought that's what it was, and I thought when I first got the diagnosis, they said it was a depressed fracture to my tibia, so basically the bone pushed away, so my knee just kind of hyperextended and went back, which was nasty as it sounds. But at first I was told it would only be about maybe 12 weeks and I'd be back playing, but unfortunately it was kind of a misdiagnosis at the start. They thought it was something less than what it was, and it was that, but there was other stuff as well, so it's just kind of was quite complicated and a bit messy. But thankfully, as I said, I've had a couple of I had to have an arthroscopy. They went in with a camera to have a look and see what else was wrong with it, and thankfully they've sorted it all out, so tip wood now, I'll be back playing and flying anytime soon.
And do you know roughly what the ballpark would have been if the diagnosis was correct at the time? Would you have got back like in half the time, quarter of the time?
I think it definitely would have helped. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed if I'm honest. I think at the time it was kind of, as I said, I went for the diagnosis. I had the X-rays, the MRIs, all that sort of stuff. They said they could see that I was a depressed fracture to my tibia, which basically meant the bone, because when my knee jammed, they pushed it down, which isn't the worst thing that could happen. But unfortunately, when that happened, it was the top of my knee got damaged as well, and obviously inside my knee got damaged too. But it was kind of a weird one, because it wasn't anything that was that severe. Like as I said, I was quite lucky to avoid the ACL, but it kind of damaged every little bit in my knee. Not majorly, but a little bit. So that's what took so long for everything just to kind of heal up, you know, that kind of way.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, it was more the fact that I didn't really know what it was. Like, you know, I went back in January, as I said, and I was given the all clear, and I remember running on it and feeling pain in my knee, and it was kind of like, I'm thinking to myself, is this in my head? Am I just kind of really cautious of it because I had the injury and because of the pain that I felt during the injury itself? And I wasn't sure what was happening with it. I remember texting Dean, my boyfriend, and being like, it's killing me, like, after training, it's really, really painful. But I think the really kind of one that hit me was like I was in bed at night and I could feel it just pulsing and really, really bad pain. And I was like, this can't be right. So I said it to the physio again, and they sent me back, and I had another MRI, and that's where they seen that there was still a stress fracture just above my knee. So I've been running on that for 4 weeks and kind of made it a lot worse, so that didn't help it, and that obviously sent me back again. So it was just a bit of a messy situation because, as I said, I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know whether it was me kind of in my head going, it's not right, when it really was, you know. So it's kind of, you kind of have them mind games with yourself more than anything. So thankfully it's all healed up now, and I'm good to go.
Absolutely. Like, when you say misdiagnosis, I know it's a totally different injury, but the first comparison I make in my head is with Santi Cazorla. I'm sure you read the article a couple of weeks ago and the frustrations he went through, because you know, it's not like it's an amateur sports person out there who's not playing their hobby for a couple of weeks. This is your livelihood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, obviously Santi Cazorla has been out for a couple of years now with that, and it's a bit of a crazy injury he had too. But I'm quite lucky that it's been a year. Obviously, it's the longest I've ever been out. But I'm quite lucky now, and I hope that won't be any more injuries, touch wood. But I'm back playing now, so I'm happy. I guess on his end of things, he had Arsene Wenger, who was quite benevolent around the whole thing, gave him a contract even though he was going to be out for the foreseeable future. In your case, what were Sunderland like? Obviously, the contract wound down during your time out. Yeah. Would that contract have been renewed, do you reckon, if you were fit? Was this the reason why? Well, to be honest with you, there was a lot of stuff happening at Sunderland, and they actually didn't get their licence for the league. I was in continuously talking with the manager and the chairwoman at the time, but they're only in the Northern Premier League now, which is quite a step down from the WSL one, which was what they were in for the whole time I was there, which is quite competitive. So they're not a professional football outfit anymore? No, they've taken a step back. So obviously the men's club have had a bit of a tough time over the last few years, so I think their main priority now is trying to get the men's club back up. So unfortunately that took a hit to the women's team, and that's kind of why I didn't go back, because it's, for me, trying to play international football, playing at that level probably wouldn't have been just right for me. So unfortunately, when it came to June and my contract was up, it was kind of like, there's no point in me going back there, because it's not going to be good for me physically to get me into the position that I need to be in to play for Ireland. So definitely. And is it usually that directly proportional to the men's team, that if the men's team are suffering, suddenly the money's gone out of the women's team exactly like that? That seems a bit unfortunate. Like, I'm sure the women's team can succeed. Unfortunately, I think in most of the clubs, and I think it's getting better. I think the likes of Man City and Chelsea and Manchester United obviously have a team now as well, and they're really trying to push the women's team, and they kind of have the money and the comfort to be able to put the money towards the women's team and not really have any sort of issues or worries. But obviously Sunderland haven't gone down twice, double relegation in 2 years. It was a huge crisis at the club, and I think the men's team and the underage men's teams are probably the more, I suppose, priority than the women's team. Yeah, you mentioned that Manchester United outfit, they're seriously impressive. Yeah, they've done really well. I think obviously the WSL too was kind of probably a little bit easy for them, if I'm honest. I think I've seen a couple of the games they played in, and they obviously beat Liverpool, who are big players, or a big team in the WSL one. So they've kind of shown that they want to compete, and they're going to be an important team. And I think it's great for football, because obviously Manchester United is a world-renowned team and probably the most famous club in the world. So for them to have a women's team is only good for the women's game, I think. Yeah, training at Carnacon as well, so it's facilities that a lot of people in the game wouldn't get to experience, and the sooner this becomes the norm, the better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, as I said before, I think a lot of people have given out about Man United not having a women's team, because it seems that women's football has grown so much, and the likes of Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea have had women's teams for a long time now. So I think it's great that they're kind of able to support the women and have a women's team too, because it's been a long time coming. I do want to chat to you about the Irish team. You'll be back, hopefully. You're not here obviously for the Poland game this week, but Belgium in the new year, and a training camp before that you said you're going to be involved in. It's kind of a time of change, with Karen and Anya having retired from Irish football, stalwarts of the Irish game. How does that change in terms of the core leadership group in the Irish team? I think it's going to be huge. Obviously, I think Anya and Karen are actually, they're probably two very quiet girls, but the way they play with kind of that, they play so well that you want to play well as well, if that makes sense. They're kind of leaders on the pitch, which I think will be missed. But
yeah, it's a weird one because I've roomed with Anya for maybe 15, 16 years now, so it's kind of a crazy one that she won't be there anymore. And obviously just after Anya retired, Karen did as well, but they've done it for personal reasons. But I do think there's a lot of girls within the squad now who can step up and kind of make that step up into the positions that they were playing in, and hopefully it can be good for women's football to have the younger players coming up now too.
It seems that it's very encouraging times in the women's setup at the moment. Am I right to say that? Like, because I know you've spoken, like say some of the things you said about Colin Bell have been glowing really, and after the strike, whatever we are now, 18 months out from it at the moment, it seems that it's all like the reasons you striked were obviously something that you very much believed in, but we're all seeing now why you striked, why this was a very important thing, because we've seen the successes from it. We've seen a much happier camp, and a happier camp is a more successful camp.
Yeah, I think obviously we all knew the strike kind of came at a bad time, I think, for Colin, because he'd just come in, so it was kind of one of those ones where we were like, we didn't want to make it awkward for him either, but like, I think he's really brought a professional element to it, and I think a lot of the stuff that we were asking for in the strike, I think would have came anyway, because I think he would have demanded it, like on the way he seems to be a professional man who wants the best for the team that he's coaching. So I think that's been a huge help for us, and I think he's just brought like a positive mentality. I think like a lot of the games we've gone into over the years, I mean, if you go into them and you're kind of like, they're not expecting us to win, like on the way, and as a player you always get that feel from the association, from people who are coming into the hotel, it's kind of like, oh, you're playing Germany, just give it your best shot type of thing. Whereas I think, yeah, a little bit, yeah. And I think with Colin, it's kind of like, look, we're going into this game, we can get something from it, and he kind of has that mentality, like really bred into the girls, that if we're going into a game, we're going to go in to try and win it. And it's not just about taking part; it's about actually going and trying to get something from it and show what we can do as a team. And I think a lot of the stuff that's come through over the last few months has definitely helped that. The girls are playing a lot more training sessions, and that's down to Colin, because I know he's onto the clubs to make sure the girls are training as many times a week as possible. That's the home-based players, obviously, and then the girls who are in England or abroad in Germany or wherever they might be are also doing the same thing. So it's been a good kind of positive impact over the last few months. And
well, what you're talking about there is a culture change, and ultimately to make a culture change, sometimes you really need to dig your heels in and fight for what's right. And I guess if there's any other camps out there who look at the case study of the Irish women's national team, even around the world, I think it's a pretty positive example for a course of action that some people would say is drastic, but to most people it's like this: you'll get what you want, you will ultimately succeed as a result of that. Yeah, well, I think at the time this whole strike thing, or the threatening of the strike, was kind of something that we never wanted to do, and it was never something that we ever thought we'd actually go through with, to be honest with you. Even the day before we actually got we came to the agreement and stuff like that, and we got everything that we were asking for, I think we were still kind of going, Jesus, we can't strike, we can't, like on the way. Like, no one ever wanted to do it, but it was kind of just a lot of the players, I think the likes of Anya and myself and a few of the girls who have been around for a long time could see the talent that was coming through, but we've seen that before and we never got anywhere. So it was kind of a stage where we were like, look, we need to do something, or it's going to be another group of players that's going to pass through and we're not going to get to a final tournament. And that's kind of the major aim for all the players that are in the squad. We all want to get to a major final, and it's yet to happen. So I think it's hopefully going to happen in the next few years if we keep working towards that goal. Well, what is the one thing that you would like to see achieved by this team? Like you mentioned, I mean, kind of off the pitch stuff, like you've obviously got that culture shift. You've got a lot of things that have led to that culture shift. But you mentioned as well about perhaps a link up with the PFAI, which would be a positive for this crew. Is that anywhere closer to happening at all? I don't know. I haven't been in with the squad to be obviously for the last few months or the year now. But I know the PFAI have helped us immensely in everything that's happened. So I'd like to see that happen. I'd like them to be our representatives, because I think it's something that you need. I don't think it's right for a player to have to go and speak to whoever it might be and try to organise these things. So if we had the PFAI doing that on our behalf, it makes it a lot easier. Even during your injury, having the PFAI on side would surely have been a positive thing. Yeah, obviously they've been very helpful to me and to all the girls throughout the last few years since they've come on board. But we obviously are happy to have them helping us out, and hopefully they'll continue to do so. Yeah, hopefully. Well, Stephanie, very best of luck in Italy. I'm looking forward to seeing what club it is, and all the best. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, it's great to see Stephanie Roche back after a year out. Going to talk to Malcolm O'Kelly in just a moment, but first we want to talk a little bit about the men's national team. So we're going to hear from James McLean. First though, we're going to hear from Martin O'Neill speaking about Harry Arter's return to the Irish setup after a lot of controversy.
No, I think he's absolutely fine. The two of them have been talking. They met up again last night, and so I think that I probably believe that I think that it should make Harry stronger for it all. You know, I think you have to take, if there's criticism coming your way, I think I've mentioned this to you before. If there is criticism coming your way, take it in some sort of spirit and attempt to prove someone wrong. If the criticism is levelled at you, and if someone is praising you, then try and prove them right. So in this case, I think Harry wants to do that. I think he wants to do it not just here, but I think he wants to prove that in Bournemouth we're wrong to let him leave there at this minute, or certainly go out this year on loan. So he's got a bit to prove, which is great. And I think players should always have something to prove.
Men having a right, that's kind of, unheard of. No. Yeah, I think they always do, to be honest. I don't think it's a biggest deal as it's been made out. So what? Someone had a go at someone. Like we're all grown men at the end of the day, deal with, get on with. But the harmony in the squad, I think if you ask the two lads as well, it's been good. It's always been good. Yeah, I think it's obviously not ideal. Harry didn't show up the last campaign. I tell Harry myself, I don't agree with that. You'd have to put a gun to my head for me not to show up and play for Ireland. But again, everybody's different. But he's here now, and like I touched on earlier, he's here now. He's a teammate. He's here to play for Ireland, and he's got my back 100% on that.
It's James McLean there, backing Harry Arter after Harry Arter decided to show up, having made peace with Roy Keane. Now, let's move on and talk about rugby, because this weekend the Heineken Champions Cup roars back into action. We've got the first game live and exclusive national radio commentary of that on News Talk on Friday evening during Off the Ball from 7 to 10. It is Leinster against Wasps at the RDS. But in 1995, it was the far less glamorous surrounds. Or actually, maybe far more glamorous, I don't know. It was Milan, anyway, which, on the face of it, should have been pretty glamorous. Malcolm O'Kelly is here to remind us about the glamour. How are you?
It was very glamorous.
It was
I was known for my glamour back then, for sure.
I see you dressed like a Milanese businessman for us this morning.
Yeah, I decided not to wear the tie, though.
Do you have any recollection of that first game in European competitions? So this is... Silvio Berlusconi owns the team. That's
right.
Which is pretty glamorous back in the day.
Yeah, and the stadium, the municipal park that we played in. I do remember, because it was my first ever Heineken Cup, and of course the very first Heineken Cup. It was very early days for me in Leinster. I played a couple of the the Carnacon match the year before. So I played against the Blue Bulls the year before. So it had some kind of touches with Leinster, but it was very much like I was really keen. It was a great honour to play.
You're only about 18 or 19, were you?
I was about 20.
Right.
95, 20, maybe just turning 21.
Okay.
But still pretty young for a second row. I do remember it. It reminds me of playing at Bushy Park. That's I saw a picture of the stadium, and I don't remember stands at all.
Right.
I think there might have been a match on in the main stage, and we were pushed out. But I do remember. I remember some of it. Like I would have been renowned back then for catching kickoffs. So I'd have been going in there like a GA lad, midfielder, and catching a kickoff over my head and what have you. And the very first kickoff, go and do that, and this huge big lad, he must have been about 22, 23 stone, big beard, probably a second rower now, but he must have been about 32 or 33, big old guy. And he just, takes the legs clean from underneath me. I'd literally do a flip in the air and land down on my shoulder.
Right.
And it was like, now, with the adrenaline and everything, I just got on with it and played on. But that day, I'd done a grade 1 damage on my AC, and it was with me for the rest of my season.
Right, from the first kickoff.
The first kickoff.
Jesus.
Yeah. It was a real intent from them.
Yeah.
And like the Italian rugby back then was quite. We lost to Italy, and we were going to lose in about a year further on down the line. But they were quite strong, and Michael Lina was playing with Treviso.
Right.
They had a good league, good strong league.
Diego, we were looking at the team. Diego Dominguez played that day, but apparently didn't play well against you guys that day.
Just a lot of kicks. There was a lot of penalties. Like you know, you've got an Irish style of rugby against an Italian style of rugby.
And that Irish style of rugby was like a Gary Owen, a bit of a
yeah. Like Dean Oswald would be all over the ball. If Dean Oswald's not over the ball, I'm all over the ball. If I'm not over, Chris Pym is all over the ball, and you get shooed. And like, you know, that was rugby back then.
That was your job.
It was a penalty, and then you get if he deemed that you. I don't know. I can't even remember what we got a penalty for. Yeah, if you got a penalty against you, that was like, all right. So I gave away the very last penalty, which is quite unnecessarily from the halfway line. Like, and Domingos had a chance to win the game for them.
Right. Okay.
He missed. Right. It was a long way out.
Happy days. Yeah, it was a professional penalty concession.
Well, that's how we. I can remember playing it. I think we played maybe the year after we played against Stade Francais. Over there, and the first half we were quite close, but the first half was because people like myself and would just lie on the ball. So we'd lie on the ball for as long as we could until we got shooed off, and I just couldn't handle lying on the ball anymore. And then they got the ball they wanted and they hammered us.
The shoeing worked.
Oh, that was how we dealt with it.
And we're talking about like the hobnail boots or the
21s, yeah, fierce, but. Yeah, thankfully those
happy
days
times
are behind us. Yeah.
What was the general sense of novelty around the tournament like at the time? Because obviously, when you look at football, like only 3-4 years previously, that had become the Champions League, and European football had become this sexy thing. Did you think that you were setting off, packing your bags for Italy, that this would become this very glamorous European conquest?
Well, I do think we were pretty excited about it because it was taking us out of the provincial matches. And previous to that, we didn't really have any exposure. So yeah, it certainly was very exciting for everyone, and it was always very exciting for us coming to and play and training with Leinster because we came from the clubs, which was our bread and butter. So to go up to that level and then have a few games, it was very exciting. Yeah, for sure.
So the AIL is still huge at this point, right?
AIL is still huge, yeah.
And how does this work then? You're playing AIL week in, week out?
Yeah, well, we used to train Tuesdays and Thursdays evenings with the club, and we train Wednesdays with Leinster.
Right.
So you train one day a week.
How many games would Leinster have had at that stage?
They would have had the provincial games and then whatever touring matches.
Okay.
So you're talking maybe 8.
Okay.
Maybe less.
And so this
is
95, the first year of the European Cup. I think there was 12 teams in it. Is that right? 4 groups of 3.
2 pool games, a semi-final and a final. So you had 4 games max really in the tournament.
We played 2 pool games. We played against Milan, and then we played against Pontypridd in Dublin, which we narrowly won. I didn't play that much. And then we played against Cardiff.
Yeah, you lost that semi-final.
Cardiff, yeah. We were well beaten by Cardiff. They're a much stronger side than we were. But we put up a good fight. But funnily enough, if we had beaten Cardiff, I would have been playing the final because none of our internationals would have been available to play the final of the Heineken Cup.
Why not?
Yeah. Because there was an Irish. Well, this is what unless we're going to change this.
Yeah.
There was an Irish training camp planned for the same week as the final of the Heineken Cup.
Screw you, European Cup. You don't need this.
Yeah, I think it was. I remember the final of the Heineken Cup was in Cardiff Arms anyway, which was obviously a huge advantage to Cardiff being there against Toulouse. And I don't know if that was set in stone or it was just because they scored more tries. Or whatever way they'd worked it out, because they hadn't really. I don't think they'd really kind of thought about like we need to put this in a massive stadium so loads of people can come to it.
Yeah.
They just kind of went, well, whoever gets through, they can put it up, and whoever scores the most tries maybe can
host it. Yeah. Looking at the stats on how many people actually showed up, so there was a whisper of 4,000 at Lansdowne Road for the game, the Pontypridd game. So that would have been in Lansdowne instead of. Would most of Leinster's games have been in Lansdowne in those days, or would they have been in Donnybrook?
No, we were Donnybrook, yeah.
Really, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly why we went to Lansdowne Road for that. Probably there was a schools game on at the same time or in Donnybrook. I'm not sure, but...
And then 7,350 showed up for the semi-final against Cardiff.
Yeah.
Which, you're Dublin. That's explosive growth in anybody's...
Yeah. No, it was a good atmosphere, if I can remember. It was a good atmosphere.
Did you play in the Cardiff game?
No, I watched kind of nervously, knowing that I was going to possibly be playing the Toulouse match, which everybody was kind of like, whatever about Milan and whatever about these, but Toulouse were the one team that were actually really good. They were the best team in Europe without a doubt. Everybody knew that, you know. And the opportunity to play against them was incredibly nerve-wracking.
Because Neil Francis wasn't playing in that game in Milan that you were playing. Would he have been first choice?
I'm not sure. He would have been first choice, yeah.
Alongside Brian Rigney? Also
Brian
first
Rigney,
choice?
I think Steve Jamison might have played in Cardiff. So, you know, we had some big bruisers playing in the row.
Yeah.
And then me, I was always put with someone like Brian Rigney. As rarely I would have played with Frano, because like they wanted someone who'd look after you. But Frano would shove you out, he'd push you out in front of him. I'm only joking. No, but Brian and Jamo would have been very much, you know, like they look after the young fella.
Enforcers.
Yeah. And you kind of needed that a little bit, you know. You if
they're shooing you with those,
you needed someone watching your back because you wanted a young guy to play with abandon and, you know, and be everywhere and
to be naive of the fear that he was actually
going all around them like.
These Italian forwards.
Yeah, sure.
Did you get any pride out of the fact that you managed to get out of your pool that year and Munster failed miserably to get out? Well, not miserably. They did win the game, I think, but they came second in their pool and didn't get out of it.
Yeah. I don't know if there was a huge rivalry between us and certainly I didn't feel it between us and Munster. Obviously, the guys would have had more. But it was so new. I think we didn't really know much, but we were pretty excited to be in the semis. You know?
It was a big step forward. Like I can't get over the fact that first day, just going back to Milan briefly, that first game was played on like a Wednesday afternoon. Like no wonder 600 people showed up for the game because like Wednesday afternoon in Milan. I mean, people have jobs. Like it's.
Well, I really think this was shoveled together really quickly.
Did they expect it to take off?
Had to fit in between the existing schedules.
Yeah.
And so hence like it was on the Wednesday. Hence the final was in Cardiff Arms because Cardiff were in it. You know. So I don't know if I think they saw this as a huge opportunity. I think clubs were looking for, maybe not the English clubs because you know they were hesitant to get involved in it, but I presume the like Irish, Scottish, Welsh we were mad for it, and the Italians too. So for the French, it was great that we could have them involved, and you know, the following years then when the English got involved, it just gave it a lot more. Yeah, you know, it built its reputation out of it. You know,
you were with Leinster for that year, 95 into 96, 97, and then you head to England. Is that it?
Yeah. So I left in September 96 for London.
September 96. Okay, so fairly soon afterwards.
Yeah, the following season. Yeah. The English clubs got their act together.
That was it. There was
they developed a professional league.
Yeah.
And there was huge opportunity for any player coming out with any reputation.
This is a slightly under talked about element in all this, is that like the story gets told, the Irish provinces got formed and immediately the IRFU understood exactly what needed to happen. But actually what happens is Ireland's best players move to England.
Yeah.
And there's a crisis in the RFU and they're like, shit, we better do something about this. And then the provinces become important. So without the players moving away, that whole provincial thing, it's taken as a fairly obvious, we had that ready to go. I'm not really sure it was as obvious at the time.
Yeah, no. Like at the time, it was all about the clubs. And the professional era was upon us. And the clubs were thinking how they could be professional. They were looking at Wales and they were seeing Llanelli. And they're seeing Cardiff's, and the clubs are thinking, how can we become professional, or can we do it? And there was like, there's no way AL can become a professional league, and in all of this, between the battling between who's going to become the professional outfits, all the players left.
Yeah,
you know, like I came out of college, it was like I'm an engineer. Either I go start working as an engineer, or I take up this lucrative deal where I can play professionally in London. It's a tricky one. You know, it's a tricky choice. Plus, they wanted me to study. If you want to study, you want to do a master's, there's no problem. You know, we'll facilitate all of that.
Okay.
They had with so many of the Irish internationals over.
Yeah, because at that point, London Irish is genuinely London Irish. There's like a bunch of Irish people playing in London.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah,
Who was on that team with you?
Well, we had Gary Halpin, who was always over there, and a couple of front rowers that weren't Irish. But then we had in the row we had Gabriel Fulcher and Jeremy Davison, who were the current rowers, and then myself. and then we had Kieran Dawson, Victor Costello, and an English guy, Kieran Bird. Then we had Niall Hogan, we had David Humphreys, we had Mark McCall, we had Rob Henderson, we had Conor O'Shea, Niall Woods, and then with a few other kind of Irish English kind of guys. But everyone had an Irish connection.
Because I'm looking at the team that played against Milan that day, and Conor O'Shea was playing, Niall Woods was playing, Victor Costa was playing, you were playing, so at least 4 of you ended up there.
Yeah.
Paul Wallace was also on the team.
Paul Wallace went to Saracens.
Yeah. Shane Byrne stayed home the whole time, I think, did he?
Shane Byrne, yeah, he stayed at home, yeah. He was kind of linked with he had kind of business at home, I think, so it was kind of...
Kirk McQuilkin, did he go to England for a while?
Kurt, no, Kurt stayed.
So it's Alan Roland was scrum half, Alan McGowan was out half, Niall Woods and Paddy Gavin are the wingers. Kurt McQuilkin.
Henry Hurley went to Moseley.
Vinnie Cunningham, obviously.
Vinnie got injured a bad knee injury, and that ended his career. Because possibly he could have made proper money, because he would have come off the back of the Lions in, was it 94?
3 was the Lions tour, was it?
Maybe,
I think. Yeah. But he's 95 the year he scored the tries. Is that the year that we nearly beat?
Yeah, look, he was an international. He was of pretty high standing, you know. So
he had that game against the All Blacks where it was like, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
That must have been great, having that huge Irish community over there at the time.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic, yeah. And we were all like students. It was like just like being in college, really, except you're all in money. We were all driving the same cars. We drove Regis. We exact same rate, but a slight change. We were all driving Green Rovers, driving around the place. And we all lived in Sunbury, which was a little just around the outskirts of London. It was very leafy. It was lovely. We trained. We used to train because it was half amateur, half pro. So we used to train during the day. We would do a lot of weights, and we would do a lot of training, and then we'd come back in the evening and we'd train, and we'd do the same thing again.
Yeah.
We were doubling up. So we found ourselves doing a lot of training. And we went through a lot of coaches over a period of few years.
Clive Woodward was there at that time, wasn't
he? Clive was fantastic. And Clive got me over and got all the guys. He was incredibly good at selling London Irish to everybody. And everybody came into droves. And then we kind of got there. It was kind of, the reality of it, of the league we were in, and we didn't really have the tools to deal with it. You have to build a culture. And we get, we've seen how Leinster and Munster have done so well over the years.
Yeah.
We were playing against the Leicesters and the Bats and these teams who were settled,
Players through their own academy system or in the locality who were playing for the locality.
Like proper cultures, and hard teams. And we really struggled. Now, we had some good wins and great moments, but the unsettled nature of London Irish was tough. That year, I'd say 10 or 12 left. And then a whole host of other players came in, and it all started again. Different coaches. It was a very turbulent time for London Irish and for all the players involved.
How did you end up coming back? What was is it just Leinster?
It was ongoing, because every year Ireland, the Irish squad and Leinster keep in touch, and we're always trying to see how they could get us back. They were very aware of what they'd lost. And every Irish player in the end wanted to play for Ireland, and they see the best ways. But there was nothing there for us for many years. The first couple of years there was just no point. There was a handful of games. I think the fact that we kind of the pro, I don't call it the pro, it was the Celtic League or the Celtic Cup, I think it was.
Yeah.
So they had actually got something solid and would have enough games. Now, eventually I went back. I had a shoulder injury, a couple other things, and the stars aligned. And they put a decent proposal for me to come back. But I had 3 bosses. I had St Mary's, who I played all their matches with. I had Leinster, who I would have played about 7 or 8 matches with. And then obviously Ireland. I ended up with an AIL medal. I can't remember. Provincially, we were okay, not great. And then the following year, the league started.
Right. So you actually got over before the first Celtic League starts.
Yeah.
Which is a bit I'm presuming it's a bit mad
Yeah, everything is a bit crazy. Yeah.
Are the IRFU paying you, or Leinster paying you, or is it an amalgamation of the three of them?
I can't go into it.
Ah, right, okay.
No, it was a case of
everybody combined.
Everybody was getting involved.
And so everybody wants their pound of flesh.
Yeah.
Get out there, I don't care if you're injured.
Yeah. But we're happy to do it.
Happy
to do it now, happy to play games. So
yeah.
It wasn't an issue like that. But it was, all the training you'd have to do. You have to train for your club, you then have to train for your, and like all different styles. So so you end up playing the way you want to play, and that's
great for great for the national team.
Yeah, when you go to the national team, like, and you're asked to do, lots of different things. Well, at that level, at that stage, it was just about catching lineouts.
Yeah.
Catch your lineouts.
Who's the Ireland coach at this point? This is around 2000.
Warren.
Right. So
Warren, was it? No, Brian Ashton maybe. Warren hasn't quite arrived, but Warren was a huge factor for developing the provinces. And I think Warren was involved. Warren was coach at the time because he was instigated. Because I was very close to going to France, going down to Cast and playing.
Right.
But I myself in, did my shoulder in, and it kind of took me off the
radar.
Right. Yeah. So. It was, it was interesting times back then.
Like it seems chaotic. And again, the story gets written about how, Irish rugby was set up, ready to go, and exploded into the professional era. But that's not really the truth, is it?
No, I think what they did was good in that. In hindsight, we're all saying hindsight. Is they just stood back. If they jumped in probably like the Premiership and gone in with, okay, we're going to create an eight club professional club system. We're going to pick 2 or 3 from each province or whatever. They would have failed. They would have ended up like Wales and would have lost a lot of money. But they didn't spend their money. They kind of let players go off, and then slowly but surely brought players back into the fold. Like even by the time I nearly finished, we still had players abroad like Jordan Murphy. And players that had slipped out and never came back, because obviously Jordan went to a great culture like Leicester and became part of the wallpaper there,
Yeah, it made sense for him to stay totally. Just to go back to the European Cup then, at what point do you kind of begin to appreciate that this rugby is as good as club rugby is ever going to be, that those matches are huge?
Well, when I played with London Irish, the first year we went there under the stipulation that we could continue to play European rugby with Leinster.
That's madness, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was part of our contract.
Right.
That was and that was part of the sell that Clive made, because we loved it. Like obviously we there first year, and that was, we really enjoyed, playing that kind of thing. And it was, I suppose, because we'd done reasonably well the previous year, that we thought it was something we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like
you would fly from London and meet the team wherever they were.
Yeah, well, we'd fly from all over the place. Like Paul Wallace would fly in from London. We would fly from everywhere, all our clubs, and we'd meet. And we'd meet the Sunday of the game, just like we're meeting for an Ireland match. So it wouldn't seem that odd.
Yeah.
And we'd just all come in, and then we start training, and we do our lineouts. And
so you have a whole week.
Yeah.
All right.
The backs would do their thing, we do our thing.
Meanwhile, London Irish have a league game, and Clive.
London Irish, it didn't clash. They would have played. I don't know what they played, because there was no. The following year, London Irish got into a European competition themselves.
Yeah.
So that year they would have had a free week. And we came, and I remember when I came back from London. Our first match was against Leicester, and we would have played Leicester and London Irish and got hammered. Then we went to Lansdowne Road. There was about, I'm not sure how many, but it felt like there was like 8,000 people there.
Yeah.
It was like all the bottom tier was full. The atmosphere was phenomenal. We're back in Ireland. We're back in Dublin, playing at Lansdowne Road.
I remember there being hype about that game. It was the first time that there was hype about a Leinster.
And we had players who were coming from all over the place. So it felt like this was like
important.
A really strong side. And we really showed up against. Now we lost. But it was against Leicester, and Leicester were arguably the best team in Europe, or second best team in Europe.
Yeah, at least as good as Leeds.
So, it was really positive.
Well, that was the Leicester team of Jono and that was enough.
Yeah, and Roundtree and all these guys. Yeah, Garforth.
Richard Hill.
It would have been not Richard Hill, but who would have been
Neil
there?
Back.
Back row? Neil Back. Neil Back. Dean Richards.
Oh yeah.
Some
recognisable roundheads.
They had some beasts. Yeah. So and they got some good players out wide as well, you know. So, but yeah, so we it was fantastic for us to come back. I can't remember any other games. I think we might have played the likes of Poe and these kind of teams. Yeah, we would have, because I have memories of playing against Poe and Donnybrook, which we would have won comfortably.
Yeah. Once you lose that Leicester game, though, that's because the groups are so small. There's only 2 games.
Yeah.
Probably a few more that season for the English teams are in, but you do end up. It seems like a mad enough time.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. Like I can remember the following year, London Irish built up their own. They had their own. The second division European League was set up, and we ended up going out to Romania and playing against Faro Constanta.
Wow.
Yeah, so we landed in Bucharest, and we took the bus from Bucharest to Constanta.
How far is that?
It was about 3 or 4 hour drive, and you know, we thought our roads were bad. But like, my God, the M1 from Bucharest to Constanta left a lot to be desired. But it's an American naval base out there, and we stayed in this unbelievable hotel. It was like something out of Transylvania. It was fantastic, but it was a great match. Now we had a fantastic match, but after the match, they didn't really have any. They had a few snacks to give us, but they didn't have anything, like, you know. But so they, under their covers, they pulled out all this kind of homebrew that they'd made.
Right.
So they indulged us with their local homebrew, which was great, you know. And that's where the game was. Like, it wasn't where it is now.
No ice baths.
You know. No, he just went on with it, and
Have you been back to Constanta since?
I've never been back to Romania, the Black Sea. That's where it was. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. I'd love to go back. Yeah, but no, never been.
It's a shame that those crazy journeys are sort of limited to the Challenge Cup these days. Like Connacht's going over to Siberia a couple of years ago.
That's right. Yeah,
it's kind of like you'd almost miss it, I'd say.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We went over there for the World Cup qualifier. Ireland went to Krasnoyarsk.
Yeah.
That's where that was. Yeah, and we flew into Moscow. And we realised that we weren't even halfway there. It was the same latitude as Calcutta. You know, we're playing a European qualifier. It was like, what? And we all had to disembark off the plane. So everybody has to disembark off the plane when we land in Moscow. And of course, like, I'm not thinking straight. I left my jacket in there with my passport. I was going. Suddenly I realised, I left my passport, and I was freaking out. And like, this is all I need now. And then the only saving grace was Eddie left his passport in. So I was like, yes. So it delayed everything. We had to go by police escort back onto the plane, get our passports. All our luggage came back off the plane.
Oh, Christ.
We had to check back in. You know, if you knew what was ahead of you, it'd be fine, but we'd no idea what was happening. We're just waiting, you know. So, you know, you need to go and you get your bags. Then you have to get your bags. Then you have to go out of the airport, back around, check back in, and then get on the next plane to...
You were blessed that Eddie O'Sullivan had done exactly the same thing.
Could you imagine, Eddie? That's just not acceptable, Mal. You'd have killed me.
Oh, Mal, it's been great stuff. Leinster, like, should win most of their games this year. They're still the best team in Europe. It's up to them.
Really strong, yeah.
27 fully fit internationals. That's the only downside, is that somebody's going to be very pissed off when the team gets selected.
Yeah, well, you know, I suppose it's all about spirit for them and you know, keeping that competitive edge and everybody being happy to play their part, you know. And I think they have the balance right at the moment. You know, that doesn't mean that they're going to win the silverware they won last year, but you know, like, just regarding that Munster and Leinster performance, like, you could see from a Leinster perspective that Leinster were really up for it, you know, in terms of their defence. It was a strange match. You normally expect Leinster to have a lot more of the ball.
Yeah.
But I think it's more credit to Munster the way Munster played, because Munster really went at it. I haven't seen Munster play as well in Dublin in many years.
And they also got completely destroyed by the referee, so it would have been interesting to see what would have happened.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, well, that's always debatable, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, Mal, good stuff. Thanks a million.
guys.
OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Aidan McGinley was on the show last night, very eloquent about violence in the GAA. Have a look.
I think the whole thing in terms of culturally, for me, yes, there was that under-20 incident between the Tyrone Armagh, but by far and away this is primarily a club issue. I think, and it hits on a point you mentioned, Joe, club, it is very, very personal. In them dressing rooms, it is very personal. That's what makes it what it is. Like, I've seen a load of club football this last sort of 6 weeks, and what it does for communities, what it means to the teams, it is just absolutely phenomenal, and that's why it's so good. That's why we're so proud of it.
Yeah.
But equally, when that goes too far, there is problems. Like, and when we talk about culture, this is a club thing. The CPA, for me, has been exceptionally silent on this as well. And if the CPA, if there was club games being cancelled, the CPA would be out saying we're putting at risk the club game. Well, they're not exactly coming forward too much and representing their members in terms of this, which for me is a bigger problem within the club game than the county game. And we are all so proud of our club game, but if there's a problem in it, there's no point ignoring it. We'll have to address it and try to see if we can get that balance between the manly, spirited pride in the jersey club football, which is the bedrock and which we all love. But from this, it is essentially hooliganism is what it is. Like, and we seen, unfortunately, what happened to the likes of Sean Cox, the Liverpool fan. We all know how we reacted when we heard that story. We thought that's just thugs, that's hooliganism. That is what is happening on the pitches whenever these rows break out. Yes, it is a tiny, tiny minority of games that goes to this level. But for me, people need to catch themselves on and respect the club game that we're so proud of, and just pull back from the brink before something happens.
Yeah, really eloquent stuff from Aidan McGinley. Always great to just have that perspective, because obviously sometimes when these stories crop up, there is this sense that there is an attack on Northern club football, because 3 out of the 4 videos that we've seen go viral recently have been from Ulster football, but it's not. It's just a sense that this is happening, and it is happening in other counties. It's just that the videos haven't been made public. But when the videos do get made public, we're going to realise that this is a nationwide thing, and it's a national thing, and the central powers that be in the GAA need to step up and say, actually, we are aware of this and we are going to start taking stuff, and somebody needs to maybe come forward at club and go, at Congress, we have zero tolerance for any mass brawl that involves more than 5 of both teams being involved in the pushing and shoving. Both teams are kicked out of the championship the next season. Both clubs at all levels, including underage, are kicked out of the championship, and then see what happens. And maybe the death penalty for a season is the type of thing that makes a club think, well, why are we violent? Why do we respond to this kind of stuff in this way?
Yeah, it is probably the only way to stop it and to nip this in the bud. Although I'm not sure. I think we're beyond the point of nipping it in the bud, to be honest. The thing about like the geographical nature of where this happens, of course it happens all around the country. It's just parts of the country kind of view Gaelic games in a much more tribal way than other parts of the country view it. And, that goes for within each county as well. There's certain parts of each county that are a little bit more tribal than other parts, and that's just the way it is. But ultimately there's a blanket ban. Everybody wants to win at the end of the day, and if that's a sort of drastic punishment that could be meted out, then it's going to stop it, you'd imagine.
All right. One final thing for me to tell you about, calling all students. If you're an Instagram whiz, or if you're wearing Snapchat a little bit better than we do around here, then we'd love to hear from you especially. We've teamed up with Vodafone X to fuel your passion for sport by giving you the chance to join Team Off the Ball for a full week. You'll get to see what happens behind the scenes of a show, attend a press conference, help report at a match, and even feature as a co-host on the show. As if that wasn't enough, you'll also receive an iPhone 8 with a year subscription to Vodafone X Sport, giving you access to 7 dedicated Sky Sports channels. To be in with a chance of winning, submit your demo tape and details to offthewall.com/VodafoneX, and we would particularly like to hear from you. As I said, if you're a Snapchat whiz, or if you know your way around Instagram properly, good chance of you catapulting yourself to the front of the queue. And if you're no good at video editing, don't worry, just lash it up there and we'll be able to spot your talent, the little needle in the haystack that you are out there. Oh,
yeah,
good job.
Well, thank you very much. Good job yourself, Ger. Congratulations on another top-class show.
6 out of 10. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.